Greetings, brothers and sisters. So it seems I'm in need of making a video about complaints, advice, and people who want to debate me. Because, I'm making videos on both here and my backup channel. Not my backup channel, my other channel. Because I'm making as many videos and posting them on that channel, apocalaughsnow, Pockets of the Future. And I like that channel. It feels like it has different energy and a different vibe for whatever reason. And so I'm happy having both channels. It's working out. I'm going to explain the strategy behind it, but it's something that unfolded naturally. I wouldn't have chosen to do it, but it's working out. I'm posting lots of content there. And most of my videos in the last couple of days about cubies have ended up going on that channel. So I'm getting a lot of comments from people. And there's people coming back from people who I banned on Pockets of the Future are able to comment on that channel, so I'm having to ban them again, right? Which is always cool. So I want to explain the dynamics in our relationship, just so people know, because I've been saying over and over again, I'm not running a complaint department here. Any negative comment, you get banned. I've said this over and over again. It's just that simple. I've said it for a variety of reasons. I'm going to explain again. So I'm going to explain it from my perspective in terms of the dynamic of this relationship. So the way I see my YouTube channels is that, I need a number of things. A channel needs a number of things to keep on going. It needs a place for it to be hosted. And so it has to be YouTube or some other platform. But YouTube is the best one for me, the best one for the channel, because YouTube is the one that has the biggest potential audience, and YouTube runs ads, which means I can be financially compensated without having to come up with some other business plan, which would take more work from me that I'm not good at in terms of being viewer funded, and it just wouldn't be as good unless people would get access to the information. So YouTube is the best place, which is, there's limitations because YouTube, you can say less than maybe on other platforms. There's more censorship, but I've coped with that the best of my ability, and it's working out okay. In terms of YouTube, having a partnership with YouTube, the third element, maybe the most important one, is my relationship with God, that whatever I do, God has to be a part of, my soul, and what I'm doing here has to be supported and in line with my spiritual journey and what God wants me to do, which I feel confident that that's the case. And so that's good as well. And the fourth element is an audience. I need an audience. I need people who want to watch the videos, or there'd be no reason to make them. So in terms of my relationship with the audience, and the way I feel about it is I'm making 2 to 4 hours of free content every day. I work about 8 hours every day, give or take, or whatever it is, in terms of making videos and also answering comments and then anything else I do in regards to the channel. And so it is a job that I enjoy for the most part. But in terms of my relationship with all of you, individually and as a collective group, this is the way I view it. That what I'm presenting here, especially to do with the Heartfulness meditation, is a gift. The energy, whatever energy that I act as a conduit for, whatever information that I give, I freely give of my life experiences, laughs that people get. I mean, sometimes people are stressed out. Some people notice that the energy in these videos and my voice is relaxing. It helps them sleep. It helps them relax. Whatever you're benefiting from, the information, whatever reason that you're here, I give freely from my end. I'm doing it because of my service to God, and specifically surrounding the Heartfulness meditation, which I have received so much from, and something that's worked wonders for me and has been a complete gift in my life. And from my perspective, again, this is something that you don't know, that the Heartfulness meditation is such a transformative system, like nothing that's exists on planet Earth, a complete gift from God on levels that no other system, no religion, no other system comes even close to. And so you don't know that, and you might not believe that, and you may never believe that, but that's the way I see it. The people that helped me get started in the Heartfulness system, I'm always going to be grateful for. I mean, in a very deep way. I feel gratitude for all the events and people that helped lead me to the system in this life or any other, right? All the, circumstances that have blessed me with doing the system. I told my brother about the system, and almost every time I talk to him, he thanks me for telling him about the system because he feels, blessed as well. And so that's something for him, right? And so, you don't know that, but I know that the way that the system is going to affect humanity over the next, 5,000 years or so, the transformative nature that the system brings and bringing people closer to God and, not just gratitude for what it does for people in this life, but beyond that, right, in terms of their spiritual journey. And the people who are really into this and have done the system and have a sense of it, like I know I don't even have, an inkling of the gifts that I've gotten from the system, but there has been substantial for me. And so, just hearing about it or experience the energy or connecting to it through me during these videos, to me is a gift, right? And there's other things, right? I give freely of my experiences and my stories and whatever I've accomplished or, my failures and successes and things and the homesteading and perspective and what I've learned from it. This is, to me, all, gifts for people. Some people feel that this channel is a gift, and many people feel like they've received something from it. And I don't ask anything from you. Like, I don't ask for anything in return. Maybe you've noticed that. I don't ask for people to subscribe. I mean, for the most part, I barely ever talk about anything like that. I don't ask for people to view the, videos or whatever it is. I just don't, I don't market it. I'm not even merching up. But even if I did, I wouldn't be selling it like, if you want it, you want it. I leave it 100% up to you, even in terms of donations and things like that. People have been very generous and have donated. Some donate through Patreon, and I'm at some point going to do some sort of membership, a YouTube membership program that I have now. I'll try to figure that out. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't, just out of, laziness. And I try to put all my energy into making videos and content. And so that's why I haven't done a lot of these other things because, I don't enjoy doing them and I'm more into making content. And if you do support the merch, if I get merch someday, or you leave a donation, it doesn't change our dynamic. You're doing the donation because you want to do it. Like you're helping out, you're helping keep the channel going or whatever. And right now it's not necessary. For years, there was no option to donate. I didn't have any way for people to donate. But then the ad apocalypse happened, and I wouldn't have been able to keep the channel going. I would have had to do some other work, and the channel would have died if I didn't give people the option, the opportunity to donate, right, and keep the channel going. And I got, a lot of support, and it was kind of moving, right? There was some guy, he was giving me, like $500 a month, some guy who was, his wife had died and he had some sort of annuity or donation he gave for like a year, and it helped keep me going, keep the channel going and things, just, moving. It made me feel good that people felt that the channel was worth, my work here was worth contributing to. I mean, it was, touching in various ways. There was another guy from England and he gave like $100 a month for a year or something like that or something. And he was, he still watches the videos and sometimes comments. But my position on it, and still was and always will be, if you feel like you should donate or something like that, then you can do it, right? But it's something you have to feel good about. You have to be able to afford it. Like, I don't want people going into hardship. And, like I said, right now it isn't necessary because I'm making enough money from the ads. So it's something where, if people want to do it, that's fine, that's great. I appreciate that, but you're not buying stock in the channel. You're not buying more influence. I'm not factoring in your opinion. I don't want you coming in and saying, like, I now owe you or something like that, right? I made that clear even in the beginning that this was something people were doing because they felt the value of what they were receiving from the channel was worth contributing to. And so I don't charge people money and I don't ask anything from you. You notice that. Like, if you watch my videos, I don't ask anything from anybody. I don't expect anything back from you. Like, I'm doing this from God, right? There's a wonderful saying that that Babaji, the second master of the system, said he got he received what he received cheaply, so he gives it away cheaply as well, right? Like it was sort of a joke that he said. He said he really didn't receive it cheaply because he had to work hard to achieve what he had to achieve, work hard internally. Most people don't understand what that is on a spiritual level, but he got it free in terms of it didn't cost any money. There was one time he went to New York City. Babaji was traveling to New York City, was documented in the diaries of Master Charge, who was traveling with him, his successor. And he was in New York, and there was a young guy there, and he said, Babaji, why aren't you charging money for your services from transmission and God realization? The goal of the system to merge with God, right? Which takes, 1,000,000 years or so normally, right? The Heartfulness system helps expedite that process, which is one of the gifts behind it. And Bobby said, no, God is free and, and all these things. And so the guy said, no, you gotta take some money. You're giving me God realization. I have to give something back. So he offered Babaji $50, right? Which is, if you understand what you're getting in terms of God is priceless. You can't charge for God because God is priceless. But anyways, getting back to the channel and what I'm saying here is I don't ask people for things because I'm doing this for God, right? If people benefit, they benefit. I'm doing this as, my work or my whatever I'm supposed to be doing. This is my role. This is what God wants me to do. My soul. This is part of my soul's plan. And I've been developed and I've been, what do they call it? Like blacksmithed, right? I've been pounded on the anvil into something. I've been made into something. And some of it wasn't so pleasant, right? Being made into a person that can do this work here. And what I expect back from people is gratitude. I say be grateful. And I'm not talking about just in terms of the channel, that being grateful is what people should work towards all the time. People should work towards gratitude. And so if you're grateful, then you don't complain. You're grateful for, what you're receiving. When you hear something you don't like or you feel like you need to point something out and nag me, right? I've told you over and over again, no, you don't know me like that. We're not cool like that, right? I don't want that, and I'll ban you from the channel. And at that point, I no longer want you to receive because I've said over and over again, don't do that. I've put out a clear boundary. Don't do it. I'm not here for, we're not running a partnership. I'm not asking for your opinion or feedback. Very clear boundary. It's unhelpful for me and for the channel. And it's not really good for you either, but I don't even care about that. That's not what I'm talking about here. It's something that you should not do. Again, if you're a hostile person, you're mad at me, you don't like the channel, you're a troll, you're going to do it because, you're not receiving anything, at least consciously, from the channel. You're hostile, you're negative, and whatever. And there's people like that watch my videos all the time. Like I had a woman who was, I think she was a QB, and she was writing to me and really in stupid ways, funny ways. I found it entertaining, so I guess it was positive in that sense. But she found a way that she could, even after being blocked, communicate with me. And she was watching my entire videos, sometimes hour-long videos, and commenting back, making these ridiculous kind of stupid comments. And I'm like, why are you still watching? To be clear, you're 100% here because of your own choice. Nobody's forcing you to watch these videos. As soon as there's a deal breaker, I do something that you're like, I never want to watch this guy's videos again, just go. You don't need to comment. Please don't comment. You don't have to tell me, oh, goodbye, cruel world, I'm unsubscribing. Not interested. Don't care. That's just a way of censoring me. It's just a way of, not allowing me to do what I need to do here. Unlimited information. You don't know what it's like to run this YouTube channel. You don't know what it's like to go through whatever I got to go through to keep the channel going. And I'm not looking for your advice, your feedback. You're telling me I'm wrong, any of these things. Very clear, right? It's not helpful at all. Again, I'm going to get that from lots of people who aren't, fans of the channel. And so if you've received anything from the channel, at some point I say something that offends you, in terms of your beliefs and you feel like it's necessary for you to go, then just go. Like, there's no reason for it to be hostile. There's no reason why you have to dump negative energy on me or whatever, because it's just disrespectful and ungrateful for everything that you've received. And again, we're not cool like that. I don't care. I'm not asking for your opinion or your nagging or whatever it might be. Any kind of negativity. Anything that I might perceive as being negative. I want to make this very clear. And you might think, oh, I'm doing him a favor, or, I'm benefiting, or this is constructive criticism. No, it's not. It's none of those things. I'm not going to take it like that. That's not how I'm going to receive it. And I'm just blowing through the comments, and I don't have time to analyze them and think about them. Useful comments are ones where people are appreciative of things, and they give positive energy back because they're receiving something positive, and they feel grateful and they want to emote. They want to, just say that they've had a positive experience with the videos, like that's positive, or giving helpful links or adding information that's helpful to the conversation, not in a challenging or debating way, but actually leaving information that other people might find interesting or helpful links to me or other people that are, relevant to the video. It's just not that hard. Same thing with messages. I'm very grateful to people who send me things that I end up making a video about. That's very helpful, especially if they are good about, like if it's an hour-long video and they point out, someone sent me that thing on JoJo the other day. Joe, the thing where Hunter Biden, the thing I made earlier today, they sent me that last night, and they told me where I could find it. So I didn't have to go through an hour and 20-minute video of JoJo. Most of it was dead air, but I didn't have to go through that, because I wouldn't have. And so people who leave helpful links that I turn into videos, I'm very grateful for that. You're helping me, you're contributing something. But again, not having a say in, not having some, I'm not selling stock in Pockets of the Future. This is a one-man operation, and anything that you contribute in terms of, helping with that's positive or whatever, but not telling me how to run it or what I should do or not do or what I should say or not say, that's not helpful, right? You understand this? Like, you can ask for, I hope you do more spiritual videos or something like that. I mean, that's, people can request those types of things, but not in a negative, insulting, or whatever type of a way. The way I look at it is I'm giving you something positive and you're giving me back something negative. That the information, the energy, and what I'm presenting here is positive, and you're giving me back something negative. But aside from that, you are encouraging other people to complain. You'll see oftentimes someone will leave a complaint and other people will leave comments agreeing with that person, and I have to go down and ban all of them, and I wish you would all just leave. Like, again, I do not care if you disagree. In fact, you should disagree. Like, I get people writing, I don't agree 100% with everything you say, and I'm like, why would I want or expect that? Like, that's not what I'm making content so that everyone agrees 100% with me. And that's not what I'm talking about here in the comments, because I expect you should disagree. I expect that you should think for yourself. I expect you should make your own decisions. I'm not a dictator or a cult leader. I'm not wanting you to agree with me. I'm just putting out the information that God wants me to put out, and I don't, and I leave it at that. I often forget about it almost immediately after posting the video, and with a couple days, I can't even remember what's in the video. And so the information flows through me, and, some of it's my opinion, some of it's my own, whatever things I'm going through. And so I expect that with the amount of information I put out there, that you're going to disagree with some things. And maybe things might hurt your feelings, maybe things might upset you, whatever it is. And then you deal with that on your own. You decide whether, okay, this really bothered me. Maybe I shouldn't watch this guy anymore. Right, that's fine. Good, just go. Or maybe I should just suck it up. But what I don't want you to do is tell me about it. Like I don't care. Like, I'm not here for you to tell me about it. And so when somebody leaves a negative comment, I had a manager when I worked as a waiter in a restaurant, in one of my restaurants I worked in. And he said if one waiter gets negative, right, gets negative about the job, I'm going to have to fire the whole staff in a couple of weeks, because there's negativity out there. There's complaints out there. And you just need a couple of complainers. You have people who are reading through the comments and they might enjoy the video, enjoy me, and they see some sort of criticism. And then all of a sudden they start seeing that criticism. They start seeing that flaw. And next thing you know, they're complaining, right? You understand this? You're undermining my message, and you're, creating negativity. And that's why people troll. People troll because they want to undermine your confidence in the content, whether it's my channel or somebody else's. You understand this? That they are saying things that other people will read and go, hey, maybe that person's right. Next thing you know, they're complaining. So it's not like there's reasons for it, and there's reasons personally I don't want to deal with it. And then there's negativity towards the channel. And so if you've been somebody who's benefited from the channel, you haven't done anything to give anything back. You don't share the stuff on Facebook. You haven't done anything to help promote the channel. You haven't done anything at all, right? You haven't left any positive comments. I get a lot of comments where people leave their first comment. They'll say, this is my first comment. I really love your stuff, but, and then there's some sort of complaint, right? They don't like this or they don't like that or whatever it is. And again, I'm not here for that. We're not cool like that. I'm telling you no. It's a clear no. Don't do that, right? And if you do that, not only am I going to ban you, you should just leave. Like now you're stealing. Now I'm not cool with you receiving, right? It's, like I don't believe in the prodigal son. I don't believe in rewarding the person that leaves. I don't believe in rewarding the person that, is disloyal. I believe in rewarding people who are loyal, people who stick by me. I believe in loyalty myself and have demonstrated in ways that people wouldn't understand. In my marriage, there were things that I tolerated. When you're living with somebody, every time you have a argument, you have to hide the knives, right? Like I lived through crap like that, someday probably tell the whole story. And I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody the bad part of it because I was loyal, and it just, nobody was going to be able to help me. Like I just accepted that there was this negative element I had to deal with, and I had to just stick with it until God, mercifully freed me from that situation. And so, that's how I view things. I'm part Sicilian. I'm part Irish, Sicilian, German, and Albanian. I don't have much stuff, at least that I'm conscious of. I have genetics. But in terms of the social aspects of it, but one of the things is Italians believe in loyalty. There's just this loyalty to the family. You should choose the family over other people and things like that. And I have a little bit of that in me, right? And so I look at it as when people are complaining and nagging, you're being disloyal, and you've cut with a cord between us. Whatever relationship was there, I don't know what's there, right, in terms of I'm just making content. But in terms of you and your feeling about whatever's going on in the channel and your whatever positive things you're receiving from it, now you've severed the cord through your own, nagging and negativity. And I'm not cool with you being here anymore. Like I just go, right? Like we're not, it's just, again, I've made it perfectly clear, don't do something, and you did it. And I say it over and over again. And again, you're choosing QBs over me. That's the way I look at it. By saying, no, you're being too harsh or whatever it is. Like that's what you're doing. Go be with the QBs. Go watch the QBs channels. Like, stop feeding off of me. Stop absorbing energy and things off of me in this channel and go be with them. You've made your choice. Like that's how I see it. And again, I've said this over and over again. It doesn't benefit me because I'm not going to change my content based in your complaints and your nagging and all these things. And you're influencing other people. Like you've received something, you got butthurt and you had to leave a comment, and now you're maybe contaminating the minds of somebody else because people, copy what other people do. If somebody, like if one of my friends back in, college when said, hey, Paul, what do you think of this girl I'm dating? Like if I wanted to screw the guy over, right, he could be totally in love with her and happy with her, I would say something like, oh, she's great, but, she's got fat ankles. Or, like, I mean, she probably did, like, I could just say anything. And the guy would eventually end up, he'd be like, oh, F you. And then, he'd start looking at her ankles or like she's a nagger, right? Yeah, she's pretty great other than, the nagging or some personal characteristic. And the guy would start seeing that, right? Because I would have contaminated his view of the person. You understand this? Somebody could, you tell them something negative about their job, or that's why that manager said that once somebody gets negative and starts pointing out all these negative things about the job, then everyone else starts seeing the same thing, and there's this negative energy that overwhelms it. And so, don't do that, right? You're not doing that to me here. That's why I ban people for being complainers and dropping negative energy. And it's just, again, there's no benefit for any of us for you to do that. Like an example of corrective criticism, I've talked about how because of my dyslexia and sometimes in a rush. The other day I, made a title. I made so many mistakes on the title. My wife and I were going out shopping or something, and I was trying to get the video up real quick, and I, just quickly typed something that I was going to check later. And the title had so many errors in it. Like people were writing, were you drunk when you wrote this title? I mean, it didn't make any sense at all. Some of you guys, it was for the apocalaughsnow channel. And so, and my wife read the title. She was like, then she read some of the comments. She was saying, like, somebody said, do you type this with your feet? Stuff like that. And so that's helpful because I can change it. That's a mistake that I can fix. Another thing was there was a guy who I've known for maybe, since I started the Heartfulness system. I met him at a gathering, somebody who lives in California, and I've had contact with. I've seen him maybe 15 to 20 times over the years at gatherings and things like this. Back in when when I first started the Heartfulness system, Master Chargy would go to America and Europe every year. And so there was an ashram in Georgia. My brother's the caretaker now there. And he would show up, and there would be a number of people from all over America. And, there was maybe 500 to 1,000 people that would go. Same people. The system didn't grow as much as it's doing now. It wasn't called Heartfulness then. It wasn't being promoted as much and things like this. And this guy I would see on and off, and he ended up watching some of my videos and telling me he enjoyed the YouTube channel. And he called me one time, right, a couple of years ago. And he said, as a viewer, he said, it's hard to, because I used to just make videos, I wouldn't give a greeting or an ending. Like I wouldn't even acknowledge that was the ending. I would just stop talking and the video would be over. Like some of you guys who had been around for a while remember that. I had a different microphone. I had one of those microphones that was on a headset, so the quality wasn't as good, right? And I would just stop talking. And he said, it's hard that I do that, right? And I wasn't a social person, and I just couldn't come up with a greeting, but I realized I didn't want to hear that. But he said it in a nice way, and we're friends or whatever. He was being helpful to the channel. It wasn't leaving in a comment or something like that. It was something that we have, a relationship or something. And I was like, all right, I didn't want to hear that. Like I didn't want to do that. I'm not somebody who's very coachable. Like when I was a young basketball player, I wanted to play at college, and I had the opportunity to play at a college if my personality was different. But the coach didn't want me because he saw that I was somebody that was, uncoachable. I learned from my own experience and internalizing things. Like I take feedback from God and nature and things, and so I'm improving. But I don't, I'm not somebody that does well with being coached or people who are trying to, get me to conform and, whatever it is. I just need to like fly free or whatever it is. At least I have a certain style. But this person said this thing, and he was right. And so I had to come up with a greeting. And first I said, good morning, brothers and sisters, and good afternoon. But I realized I would say good morning, brothers and sisters, when I was making a video in the morning, but I wouldn't release it till, noon or, 4 o'clock or whatever it might be. So that wasn't correct, right? That was, and people were hearing it in Europe or in California or something, or, some other place, some other time zone. So then I came up with the word greetings, and greetings was a good word. Like it's not a word I used before, but it worked perfectly. And then I came up with this idea of reporting from the apocalypse, and then that changed to the apocalaughs. And then I liked it, right? I had an ending and a beginning, and it was good. Let you know when the video began, and it acknowledged the audience. And then at the end of it, I would say this other thing, and something I was happy with, but it took some time for me to come up with it, and it's not something that I'm good with. But the guy did me a favor, right, by telling me that, and it ended up improving the videos and things like that. Like, that was helpful. Where these other comments where people are, they want to have influence over the content, and you simply don't. You don't have any influence over the content unless you pull it out with your heart, right? Like, through craving, through creating some sort of vacuum, you can, it's just like with God. You can get things from God just from your love and just from your craving. Like, that's one of the things in the Heartfulness system. People want to spend time with the master of the system, and they would be at a gathering. If you just sat there and you felt your love for the master, your love for God, and you're sitting there and, you're craving that love, and the master system would just appear, you would come out and talk to everybody, right? He was pulled by people's love and craving. There's something that, let's say you're, a lover and the beloved. You have somebody that you love and you miss them. You haven't seen them in a while, your children, your parents, and you can say, all right, I really want to see you. And, you can say it physically, you can say it through the material world, through a message. But another good way is just loving them and craving them and pulling them towards you. I mean, even the sense that if you miss somebody who died, some soul that died, you can, have a moment you really miss them, and you can feel their soul like it's somewhere in the room with you. You feel their presence because your love, the love of your heart has pulled them to you, right? I mean, it's just a wonderful thing. And people being attuned to other people on this level because they love them so much, they know them. There's a couple of great stories from the Heartfulness system. One of these stories is a very profound story. I don't know if I've ever told this one before. But there was this time that Master Charji was, he was Babaji's disciple and became his spiritual representative and successor. And Babaji was telling him that Lalaji, was Babaji's master and his, the person that he learned from, that Lalaji was, he was a poor person. He lived in northern India. In northern India, they drank tea, and in southern India, they drink coffee. It's this, they have coffee in the south and tea in the north. And Lalaji, who never really liked coffee or never drank coffee, woke up one day and was craving coffee. And some guy, one of the people that was receiving spiritual benefit from him, showed up at his house and made him coffee. And Lalaji walked down the stairs, and the guy handed him a cup of coffee without saying anything. Like, he picked up on whatever this was, right, his desire for coffee, and just, walked over his house maybe a mile or two with some coffee. Like, Lalaji didn't have any coffee in his house, and the guy just picked up on it and made him some coffee because he was so in tune with him, right? People are like that, right? People love somebody so much and whatever it is that they're in tune with them. And so Master Charji wrote this in his book called My Master, wonderful story. So Master Charji, said, he blurted this out like he regretted it, but it was important to the context of the story. He said, well, why did that guy become Lalaji's representative and not you? Like, he was so in tune with them and all these things. He said, why didn't he become his chief disciple? Why were you chose? And Babaji gave this epic answer. He said that there's lots of moths that can immolate, kill or offer as a sacrifice, especially by burning. So he said there's lots of moths that can immolate themselves in a warm flame, a warm light, right? So that's a moth that flies into a flame or a light or something like that, wanting to be around the heat or whatever it is, and they burn themselves and they die, right? And they're gone. And he says, but a rare moth can immolate itself in a cold flame. And I didn't have any idea what this meant. It was one of the first books I read, and I reread it. And as I, learned more about the Heartfulness system, it was a brilliant answer. And what it means is, in terms of the specific relationship with Babaji and Lalaji, that in, the Indian tradition, there's this idea of saints or spiritually developed people burning themselves on a pyre. And there's this, metaphor for one's ego being emulated, that you sacrifice your ego to evolve spiritually for, the love of God or the love of your guru or whatever it might be. And so what he's saying was that there were lots of people that might be able to do that with a living master, with a living guru, which is, there's all these disciples around who give up their egos and they minimize themselves, their smaller selves, to expand their soul and merge with God and go to a higher level of consciousness. And so they're, in a sense, sacrificing their egos and burning themselves in a hot flame because they have this spiritual representative, somebody like Krishna or Jesus or Buddha or one of these higher developed souls around, and it inspires them to reach up to a higher level of consciousness themselves. But Babaji's accomplishments spiritually with his relationship with Lalaji happened after Lalaji died. And so even though this disciple of Lalaji's, this person who loved him so much and was in tune with him so much, knew that he had this physical need or some desire to have coffee, and the guy just showed up at his house without anybody asking him or telling him and made that coffee, which is, a high level of being sensitive to another person. Babaji was able to do that after Lalaji died. He was able to connect with Lalaji and intercommune with him when he was no longer in a physical form and able to merge with God, even though, his guide was no longer in a physical body. So it was a wonderful answer. He didn't praise himself and he didn't, he was able to give this wonderful answer without bragging or, any of these things. He was able to speak truth in a very humble way. And so that's like part of the Heartfulness system where, sometimes love and this energies don't have to be spoken and things like that. It's just something that people are able to, just know, right? Be able to care for and give to people without having to be told, and do what's best for somebody else. And, if they see something the person needs to improve on, instead of criticizing them, in terms of people's loved ones, you pray for them, you pray for them to change or whatever it is, right? There's more subtle ways about getting people, to help people do what they need to do without being so, people are kind of rough in America and just, especially on the internet where everybody thinks their voice matters and anybody with a gripe or complaint thinks it's their God-given right to share that with everybody else. And on my channel, that's not the case, And so I get comments all the time from people, and I had to deal with these cubies not only crapping all over and destroying, the truth community that I helped to create and build. And so many of us, people were, I know that guy Jeff C. was against it, and lots of people had been around for a while, saw what was happening. It wasn't hard to see. And then they were very hostile and immature and, just generally sucking. And so, this is what they get now. Like, this is what they need to receive. They should suffer, right? This is not because God is punishing them, because they're punishing themselves by their own ignorance, and they set themselves up to suffer later on. And you guys have no idea of the hostility people deal with on YouTube channels. One of my longtime viewers who has a baking channel, a successful baking channel, she's had a few of them, and she wrote a comment saying, like, even with just having a baking channel, she gets so much anger and hostility and all these things from people. You get threatened, and, of course, the government's against you if you're a truther, and the media and the, platform itself. We're all being told all the time that we're wrong. Like, I get, wonderful things from the Heartfulness meditation system. I love Heartfulness. I love the system. But in terms of this YouTube channel and me personally, like, there's been negativity and things, and I'm not complaining about it. I'm perfectly happy with it, but I'm not getting supported in different ways, right? They're not, there are some people who do the Heartfulness system that enjoy this channel, but a lot of people just don't understand it. And there's been some negativity and things towards me. I get it from all different directions. So if you're somebody who's benefited from my videos, that's the worst. Like, why would you complain? Like, I understand why everyone else who doesn't get the channel or, dislikes me or the channel and doesn't really want to listen to videos. But I have people who, leave negative comments and followed me from one channel to the next, right? Who have been around for a long period of time and they're still watching the entire videos and yet complaining and criticizing, right? Like I've had people who have had multiple channels will create channels just so they can give me a hard time, right? I mean, just think about the pettiness and the effort they're willing to put in to make a new channel because I banned them and they just want to, dump negativity on me. This happens, I mean, not just to me, but everybody. If you don't have a channel, you don't appreciate that. Like you don't appreciate all the other things that go into it. I mean, I got, when Farley, my dog Farley died, there was all these people that said condolences and things like this. And somebody had written me an email with condolences with a question mark, and I didn't really notice it. And I just couldn't keep up with all the stuff. And, there's lots of comments and messages. And then maybe 4 or 5 days after Farley had died, our dog Farley, our Papillon, I looked at this email. I said, there's condolences with a question mark. And it was some like old viewer kind of, maybe sort of recognized the person. And they were upset at some other video I made, a while back. I forget, what the context was. And the person wrote, I've been waiting for this to happen to you for 2 years, like my dog dying. They were pro Farley dying because they wanted me to suffer. And the person was stalking me for 2 years, hoping something bad would happen to me so they could write a 2-page email that I didn't read, right? Like imagine the sickness of this person. And their point was that somehow they were better than me. Like, because I said something in a video they didn't like, whatever it might have been, right? And like they thought that I deserved to suffer. And this innocent, wonderful, cool little dog, Farley, they were pro it dying. They were pro Farley dying, not to think about my wife and family members and the sadness they suffered from the dog dying. I mean, this is the kind of sickness is out there. Like we have to deal with that all the time. People who make content, and especially with the anonymity of the internet and how people are. And there's cubies that are, some of the worst of the bunch. So I don't want to hear any of your crap is what I'm saying, right? Like don't, if you think I'm being rough with cubies, go be with the cubies. Make a choice, right? You can be here, you can be with them, but you can't be both, right? This isn't, to some extent, it's a war for the soul of the truth community. Like this isn't where you can be both. And so the people that embrace that movement that was destructive, they have to, they have to go fix themselves or whatever it is, rise up to a higher level of consciousness. But especially the one negative ones, they were, a cancer on the truth community. And I'm going to make as many videos as I have to. I've talked about this before. Things have to run in their course. That's just, I've been mentioning that in terms of the Heartfulness meditation, till it completes its cycle. That's something that Babaji often says. This has to complete its cycle. Like something begins and it has to end. And so you're on that roller coaster until it ends. And there's times I've wanted to make one video or not even one video. Like when I started making videos about that documentary about Michael Jackson, and I ended up making one, and then there were all these comments, and I ended up making like 10 or 11 videos, and I didn't even want to make the one, but it needed to be done. Now those videos are gone, so, it is what it is. Like they're videos I can't post on YouTube. And so things run their course, and it has to run its course. If you don't want to hear me talk about the negative effects of the Q community, then you could not watch the video or you can leave completely, but don't tell me about it, right? Because, I don't want to hear it. Like very clearly, I don't want to hear it. So I was making the voiceover. I'm editing now, doing the editing of this video. And my wife was outside my door. This is about dinner. I was going to finish dinner, and my wife was outside resting. And she heard the Farley story. I didn't tell her because, she was really upset, and I knew it wasn't the time or whatever. She would just got really angry or whatever at this person. And I remembered the context. Like the person wrote, like a 2-page email, and I read just the first paragraph because it was just so effed up. And the person was angry at me because I said some insensitive things. You know, there's all those deaths, those like blood sacrifice deaths of a bunch of those rockers, remember? You know, sort of indie rockers and whatever band it was. And I said maybe some insensitive things, or this is what the person thought, whatever it was. And the person waited for 2 years stalking my videos and then wrote to me saying, I'm glad your dog died. like you think about how effed up that is. And Farley was such a sweet, nice dog, and that they were pro Farley dying, you know, just like some sickness, right? And thinking I'm the asshole, like think they're better than me, like stuff that I would never do, you know. Hey, mister, I'm glad your dog died. Like there's just, you know, no sense of decency and just the like obsession with it. So there's 2 other pieces to this. And the first one is when QBs started to invade my channel and I made some videos disagreeing with a bunch of their theories. Some of them weren't specifically addressing QBs. There were things I was just saying that somehow offended them. And I started getting a lot of comments from people saying that I was a shill and a pedo enabler because I wasn't on board with their rhetoric. And their point of view that everybody who wasn't on board with their crazy Q stuff, which was doing damage to all these things, you know, doing damage to all these movements they claim to think about or care about, was pro-pedo and a pedo enabler. And then I thought about it, and I worked around 6 years with in treatment centers with teenage pedophiles, and the treatment program was about helping them lose their pedo tendencies, lose their abusive tendencies, right? And it's a difficult population to work with, an unbelievable stressful job. You know, no one wants to work with offenders, right? They're in a prison population, offenders are considered the lowest of the low. And while I was doing that job for 18 years, I was married who was an abuse survivor, right, from her family, her parents. And then later on, I wrote a whole workbook called Transcending Abuse, right? It was about transforming the, you know, the energetic and the patterns of behavior that are instilled in you from abuse. And I made so many videos, and many of those have been deleted, about grooming and all these things, the assault cycle and the abusive tendencies of the so-called elite, and how those relate to the assault cycle and all these other things. Many people remember some of these videos, but I made so many of them because I had professional and personal experience with all this, right? And so when I had these frickin' newbies come in and accuse me of being a shill and a pedo enabler because I didn't fall for this stupid, you know, ridiculous scam, and they were being worked and they turned into be a disaster for all of us, right? They were running towards their enemy and slobbering all over their enemy and working for their enemy and being exploited by their enemy. And they were really crappy about it, you know, in terms of they thought they knew everything and they just whatever. They hadn't done anything, right? They just, you know, they weren't working on the front lines against abuse. In fact, they were abusive themselves, right? Manipulative, you know, just assaultive, aggressive, right? Harassing people. And they just sucked. And they've done damage. And that damage is just beginning to unfold now. And if you're going to look at this as a war, then these people are a tool or a weapon against the forces of good. They need to atone for what they've done. And you have all these people who probably were, you know, a little bit lured in by the Q thing, and now they're bummed that I'm telling it like it is because they know they kind of fell for it too. But the big thing that happened that I had a realization, just a epiphany about the truth community, was after my wife and I had COVID. And I really didn't want to talk about it on my YouTube channel because this was back in April and I didn't know what they were going to do. We weren't tested. We never went into the medical system. We knew we had it just from the physical trauma, from the, you know, the symptoms and the disease itself. And we had self-quarantined and, you know, stayed in the house until we were better. But it was very early in what everything was going on, and I didn't know whether they were going to start forcibly quarantining people and everyone was so freaked out about the disease then. I mean, that was when it was just starting to take off that I, you know, it just out of self-preservation and not knowing what was going to happen, I didn't really want to divulge in public that I had it, right, in terms of making YouTube videos. But my wife talked to me, and we had done so many alternative things, and not that I wanted to give medical advice or anything of that nature, because I don't do that, but I could at least share some of the things that we did and just give people a sense what it was like to go through this, and it might actually help people or save some lives even. So, I felt kind of responsible, but I was uneasy about sharing it. So I put the video up, and I got so many hostile accusations, calling me a shill and saying I didn't have the disease. I mean, not only hostile, but arrogant and stupid. And I realized the truth community just absolutely sucks. Like, there's some people or whatever, regular viewers and, good people or whatever it is, but it's just a small number. I mean, I would say 5%, 10%. I mean, in terms of, because some of these people had been around for a while, people I might recognize their name or whatever it was. And they were just completely crappy about it. And I realized, I just was like, the truth community isn't any better than the controllers. In fact, worse. Because what happened was there was this narrative going around the truth community that there was no virus, that it was just the flu, or it was something, a strain of a cold, and it was nothing more than that. And there was no new COVID, there was no anything. And they proved that viruses actually don't make anybody sick. And this was a narrative that was going around the truth community. And I could understand why people would believe that, because until I got sick, I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know. We don't trust the government. We don't trust the media, right? All of us. And so I can understand why people fell for that or believed that. And until I got sick, I had no personal knowledge that the disease was real. But when I got sick, I knew, because it was a nightmare that plagued me. And I'm mostly over it now, but every once in a while there's some, complications, and it would devastated my body afterwards. And, and it wasn't the flu. Like, it was just ridiculous. It wasn't a cold. And my wife got it too, a more mild case. But when you get it, it's not the flu. It's not a cold. And I don't care if you believe me or not, if you're still stuck in that there's no disease thing. But you understand, I know. Like, there are things that people will say to me, comments, when I know for a fact that what they're saying is BS. They're attacking me. And that's the worst time, right? I mean, sometimes it's speculation. Sometimes I'm not sure. But I'm sure, because I had it, that there's something going around the globe that they're calling COVID. And I don't know where it comes from. I don't know, what it is. And I don't know anything about that. But I know it makes you sick. Like, it makes you really sick. And a number of my viewers, some of them longtime viewers, talked about having similar symptoms and what they had went through, what family members had went through. And, my wife knew somebody really well who got it. And when you get it, and I'm not talking some mild version, because some people are asymptomatic, some people get a minor cold. I'm talking about people who get really sick. And when you get really sick, it's a complete bummer. And it can, have long-term effects and all of that. But this isn't about that. It isn't about COVID. It's about, that these people, these so-called truthers, had heard something in a video. And they were convinced they knew there was no such thing as COVID. And so then I told them something else, right? I told them, I had it. And maybe they had watched a number of my videos and thought that I was believable or someone that they could trust. But then they have this decision they had already made, a rigid stance they had already taken with inside themselves that was no COVID. And they started to either lash out or tell me I didn't know what I had, like tell me I didn't know my own body and stuff. And this kept on going. Like, whenever I've mentioned I'd had COVID, this is almost a year now. This is about, 8 months or so. I have truthers to say, no, you didn't. There's no such thing. And I'm like, all right, you know, bro. Like, you don't know. That's the problem. And you're wrong so much. And the QBs are wrong so much. And I've seen this over and over again. For a group of people that thinks that they have good critical thinking skills and they're good researchers, they absolutely are it, right? They're almost always wrong. They're as wrong as the mainstream media, and then they latch on to their wrongness. Like, they get rigid about their wrongness because we're searching through lies and disinformation looking for the truth. And it's very hard sometimes to get a straight answer. And oftentimes there's multiple explanations and narratives for any one event or any one subject. And I realized, and I reviewed, my whole time in the truth community, and I saw that there was so much in the truth community where people would argue over and get into beliefs, right? They would lose it over beliefs, an event, and then they would break up into camps. There would be two narratives usually, or three or whatever, but two major narratives. Like this case, COVID exists or COVID doesn't exist. And when anybody else, if they decide that COVID didn't exist, when anybody else said it did, they would immediately attack the person. Like that's how, you've experienced this. There's so many people like this who think they know, and as soon as they find somebody that disagrees with them, they want to get into an argument and tell the person they're wrong. And they both share, they're both considered themselves so-called truthers, right? But that's why there's always been division and crappiness, because the truthers aren't any different than the people that control the system or the sheeple. They like to think of themselves as better, right? And that's why there's so many lies and hostility floating around the so-called truth community. And that's why I just don't tolerate anything, like in terms of, I never really did, but even more so now. And I'm very clear that I work for God, right? They have a specific assignment here, and I'm doing it without any, I don't get bummed about it or depressed. But as far as I can tell, there's not very much to save in terms of humanity. I have my own struggles and my own character flaws and things, but at least I've moved forward. Like I've gotten better and I've improved, and I've stuck with the Heartfulness system, which has been something that was hard to do at times. Like there are a couple of times I wanted to quit and just whatever. But I moved through it. I pushed through it. I've endured some of the, when you go on a spiritual journey, your ego gets dinged up. You get like kind of, your feelings are going to get hurt. You're going to learn things about yourself you're not going to want to hear. And, there's just a lot of difficulties when you are evolving and on a spiritual path. And most people, as far as I can tell, just don't have the ability to do that. They say they want to wake up, but they don't really want to wake up. It's very limited. They're limited and very rigid in their thinking process. And, in terms of religion and things like this, they won't give up on it, even though, it's lots of things. That's the cult of Q. And this is a time where you almost have to do that. Like you have to, it's going to be a rough ride for people. Over the next 500 years or 1,000 years, it's going to be very tough on planet Earth. We're just at the beginning of a very rough period. And people are going to start falling apart and losing it. And only if they reach up and, they have the inner fortitude and strength to realize the truth about themselves, not so much about everybody else, but how far they've fallen away from their own spiritual path and how disconnected they are from God and how little love they have in their hearts and how their brains and their personalities, their psyche and their ego have been wired in the wrong direction and what they need to change. Years ago, I was made a trainer for the Heartfulness system, and I felt like I was a pretty good person and, that I was pretty dedicated to being a spiritual person. And so there was this book that was a seminar given by the third master of the Heartfulness system, and it was about character development and what kind of person you needed to be a good trainer or preceptor or spiritual person, like become a spiritual master and evolve. Just the selflessness and the attitudes that you were supposed to take and just all of it. And when I read through it, I got completely overwhelmed. I was like, there's no way. There's no way I would ever be that good of a person. And I realized that the masters of the system were that. Like the Master Charji, who I knew, and the two previous masters, had developed into these kind of people. And I said, well, at least somebody can do it, right? And so it was overwhelming. And then I look at, that compared to where most human beings are. Because I still, I understand what it means to be a true spiritual person and what it takes and what you have to give up and, what you have to put your energy in terms of your attitudes and service. And, I may get there, I may not. I'm still, far away from that. But I look at the average person and just the rigidity of their thinking patterns. And, again, this is also talking about the so-called truther movement. And, I don't have much hope for humanity where they are now. But there's a line in the Heartfulness prayer, the Sajmark prayer. The middle line is about anybody who does a system, and it goes, "We are yet but slaves of wishes, putting bar to our advancement." And a lot of people who hear that line have a lot of trouble saying it or believing it. Maybe people in the truth community would have a little less trouble because they understand that, but most people don't want to think of themselves as slaves. We are yet but slaves of our wishes, slaves of wishes, putting bar to our advancement, putting bar to our spiritual advancement. And that's where humanity is. And most people don't have the ability to confront that. And I've seen, again, I've met two of the spiritual masters and seen the work that they do and the commitment they do to, the commitment they have to God and to the system, and how much energy, their life force that they put into other people and helping them evolve spiritually. And I've met some real highly developed spiritual people in the Heartfulness system, saints. I met a lot of, a-holes as well. It's, there's a lot of different personality types. But I know the system works. I've seen many people change for the better, and I've changed for the better. Like my own personal experience from what I used to be to what I am now, and my older brother who I've seen have significant change and growth and who he is as a person as well. And so I know the system works. But every day I look into the cesspit. I look into the Palantir or whatever it is, that, that orb from the Lord of the Rings. Don't tell me what it is. I could look it up. And I see the depravity and the, negativity of the human being, the current human consciousness. And the truth community is as bad as anybody else, right? Just the behaviors and attitudes and hostilities and arrogance, because so many people in the truth community think they're so much better than the sheeple and all these things, right? And, I have my own arrogant issues and things. I'm not, whatever. Like, I'm not as judgmental as other people are in the truth community. I understand, because in the Heartfulness system, there's this great story Master Charger used to say all the time, that this, disciple, that this person, this aspirant, spiritual aspirant, went to meet a guru. And he went to the guru and he said, I want to learn spirituality from you. And the guru said, well, okay, but you have to give me a guru dakshina, which is like a gift. At some point you have to give a gift to the guru. It's the dakshina is like some sort of, like a tribute. And the disciple or the aspirant said, okay, what do you want? And he said, bring me back the worst thing in the world. And so the aspirant went out and saw something that was bad, like a dead body. He saw this, He's going through and finding all these disgusting things, right? Horrible things in the planet. And then he was like, all right, I can't find it. There's just, one thing's worse than another, right? So finally he's going to the bathroom. He's relieving himself. And he's, defecating. And he realizes, okay, that's the worst thing in the world. And he goes to scoop out his excrement, right? He goes to reach in. And his excrement, his poop, says to him, what are you doing? He said, well, my guru wants the worst thing in the world, and like you're it. Like I thought about all the things in the world, and you're the worst. And his poop said, what are you talking about? I was birthday cake before I met you. Like, you turned me into this. I was, an apple. I was wonderful things. I was wonderful fruits and, foods and things like this. And you turned me into this. Like, think about what I was when I went in and what you turned. Like, this is what you do. This is, this is what you something touches you, something goes inside of you, and this is what comes out. And so the aspirant goes back to the guru and says, I've brought you guru dakshina. He said, what's the worst thing? The guru said, what's the worst thing in the world? And he says, I am. And so then he goes, good, I'll accept you as my disciple. And so that's my personal perspective in all this. This is what keeps me going, that everyone in the world, starts off as something like that, a slave of wishes. And that's what we all are. And for some people, they can aspire to be something more. They can throw off their wishes. They can throw off their weaknesses and their addictions. And this, being a crap maker, right? Being somebody who, everything, human beings take whatever, trees and whatever it is, and turn it into garbage, right? Look at how much garbage we produce and all these things. And so, we're not in a good place, and human beings suck right now, and people in the truth community are no better. But, from that place, if people realize, throw off their arrogance and all these things that they have going on and realize that they can be something more, well, there's a system available and there is an opportunity right now to evolve in ways that people can't even conceive of. And so, I have hope in that sense. From my own personal experience and getting better and changing and adapting to, a spiritual way of life. And at least you're moving forward. If you're going forward in that direction, connecting to God on a deeper level. Most people are scared of God. I've talked about that in the past. And so, there's where the hope is for me. And that's what keeps me going. But certainly isn't, that I feel some great inspiration from the comment section or the attitudes and the content that's being produced out here in the truth community, because that ship has sailed. There's no changing the world the way it is now, and there's no arresting the controllers and making everybody pay that you think is evil. This is about you changing, you realizing what you are, and you changing. And people who can't get with that aren't really welcome here because, they're just a part of the problem. And only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.